Thank you, Paul. Welcome everyone to today's webinar, and thanks for taking the time out of your day to listen. We hope that you'll get some useful insight out of today's session. My name is Bryce Kelliher. I'm the Senior Tourism Data Insights Analyst at Tourism New Zealand, and along with my colleague Lucy Alborn, who is the Senior Consumer Insight Analyst, we hope to share with you some useful and interesting insights into the China market. I'll first talk to some key trends from the China market that will serve as context to Lucy's part of the presentation, where she will talk in a bit more detail about the Chinese FIT holidaymaker. The following insights today have been sourced from a range of industry research projects and tourism data. The purpose of the session is to provide the New Zealand tourism industry with an overview of the latest research findings to help improve knowledge of what Chinese FIT visitors want when they visit New Zealand on holiday and how to best meet their needs and improve our offer. Some of you may already be aware of some of the research and trends we will talk to, but by bringing together a wide range of information, we hope to tell a wider story that will be of use. Our intent is to help our domestic operators make the most of the increasing number of Chinese visitor arrivals, and in particular, FIT visitors. FIT stands for Free Independent Traveller or Tourist, as opposed to those on group tours. So, just looking at slide number 6 now, I just want to put in context some of the current and future forecast arrivals out of China. You're probably well aware of the past and predicted growth out of this market. This chart here shows total and holiday arrivals from 2007 to 2014, with the forecasted total arrivals from 2015 to 2021. You can see that total Chinese arrivals are close to 600,000 in 2021, a significant increase from now. This equates to an 11% compound annual growth rate, or 116% growth over the next 7 years. It's a little bit lower than the current rate we have, but still a very high rate to sustain for several years. The forecasts are based on a macroeconomic model and moderated by several industry organisations. Each year forecasts are revised and can be accessed on the MBIE tourism data page on the website. Now, if we just look at the most recent arrivals data out of China for the year ending April 2015, total arrivals are 302,000. So you can see we're well on our way to surpassing the 305,000 forecast for 2015. There seems to be no slowing down from this market at the moment. To give these forecast numbers a more tactile feel for you, consider the forecast growth this way. 1 in 3 of all additional arrivals from 2014 to 2021 will be from China. The growth out of this market will outstrip any other market. Other growth forecasts for China include one from Bank of America Merrill Lynch, who are forecasting 174 million total outbound travellers by 2019. Some estimates are more bullish, with up to 200 million outbound predicted by the end of the decade. Regardless of what forecasts you look at, the consensus is that this already large market is going to continue to grow at an astonishing pace. The market represents a huge growth opportunity for the industry, so we need to be in the best position to capitalise, from marketing New Zealand as a destination to satisfying those who come so they want to come back, and also encourage their friends and family to visit. Later in the webinar, Lucy will talk in more detail about the Chinese traveller and what we can do to ensure they are completely satisfied with their visit to New Zealand. On to the next slide now, slide 7. This page here sums up one of the major underlying drivers of the growth out of the Chinese market. It looks at a few key points from an excellent McKinsey report on the middle class in China. Now, you may have read or heard about the emerging middle class out of China. Well, the middle class has already emerged. It's here now. What's going to sustain strong rates of outbound travel in the future is the increasing size of an upper middle class with higher income than the mass middle class. This upper middle class makes up around 14% of urban China households in 2012 and is predicted to make up 54% in 2022. Quite a sizable shift in a small amount of time in terms of wealth, household wealth. This upper middle class have more seasoned and sophisticated tastes, and they are able to pay a premium for quality. But they do expect quality if paying for it, whether it's quality of goods, quality of service, or of an experience. One of the key subsets of these middle classes is the generation who are currently teenagers or in the early to mid-20s now. They have heavy exposure to Western culture. They are independent and confident, all the hallmarks of an FIT traveller. They're going to be able to make up a large proportion of that future FIT market. They are heavy users of social media and are exposed to potential destinations via shared experiences in social media or online. Lucy will talk to the importance of social media for Chinese FIT visitors later in the webinar. On to slide 8 now. One of the major positives out of the China market is that the value of this market is growing at a faster pace than the volume. You can see in the bar charts on this page the absolute and average expenditure for both total China visitors and holiday China visitors for 2014. Holiday expenditure was up 52% on the prior year, while average expenditure per person was up 36%. The regional tourism indicators, which use electronic card data to provide an index of spend, also show a very positive trend. The index for China for the 12 months to April 2015 was up 49% on the prior year. Whichever measure you prefer, they both show strong upward growth. The large increase in arrivals is helping drive value growth, but so too is the increasing length of stay and the greater proportion of FIT China visitors we are seeing. On to slide 9 now. These two pie charts use arrival and immigration data to try and calculate an accurate size of the independent holidays taken by Chinese visitors to New Zealand. On the left chart, you can see that independent holiday made up 20% of total China visitors for the year ending March 2014. And you can see that group made up just over half of total Chinese visitors for the same period. Now if we look at the chart on the right, a year later, ending in March 2015, you can see that in a space of a year, independent holidays have increased to 27% of total China visitors, and that group has fallen to under half of total arrivals. Group visitors are still increasing, it's just that independent holidays are increasing at a faster rate. If we are to remove VFR, business, conference and education arrivals, and just compare independent holiday versus tour groups, the independent holiday in the year ending March 2014 would have been 28% of holidays, increasing to 37% for the year ending March 2015. So you can see the pronounced change in travel style in a short space of time. On to slide 10. A key attribute of independent holidays is a longer stay in New Zealand compared to group travel. Group holidays are typically 1 to 4 days as an add-on to an Australian holiday. In the chart and table on this slide, we can see the declining share of 1 to 4 day holidays, and we can see there's a shift to holidays that are anywhere from 5 to 28 days long. As recently as 2012, nearly 3/4 of China holiday arrivals were for only 1 to 4 days. Fast forward to the year in March 2015, and and this falls to 50% of holidays. As this market matures in experience and more visitors want independent holidays rather than group travel, we will see a steady shift away from short tours as part of an Australian holiday product, to more travellers choosing to travel independently for longer and solely in New Zealand. In fact, 80% of those who stay for 1 to 4 days in New Zealand come by an Australian port, whereas of those who stay 5+ days, 64% come from a China or Hong Kong port. As it comes on, increased direct capacity will support the growth of mono-destination FIT travel. We will still see a lot of group travel out of China, especially as second and third tier cities pick up the pace for travel. But as arrivals increase and more of those arrivals are FIT who stay longer, we should see more Chinese visitors travel to more destinations within New Zealand and do more activities while here by virtue of a longer trip. This is a trend that should benefit many parts of New Zealand, not just the traditional destinations for Chinese visitors in New Zealand. On to slide 11. Looking at a regional level, you can see that 1 to 4 stay-day Chinese holiday visitors only really spend time in Auckland and Bay of Plenty, effectively Rotorua in the North Island, and Otago, effectively Queenstown, and Canterbury in the South Island. However, you can see that those who stay 5+ days have a greater propensity to visit other regions. As the number of China holiday visitors grow and the nature of these visitors shifts more towards FIT, those smaller regions could expect to see growth of Chinese visitors increase at a faster pace than the total growth rate. On the next slide, I just want to play out a bit of a scenario based on forecasted arrivals and the changing mix of holidays to longer stay FIT travel. Just to give an example of how the evolving and growing China market will have on the smaller regions. On to slide 12 now. Let's use a hypothetical region similar to those smaller regions with fewer Chinese visitors on the previous slide as an example. You can see that my example, only 2% of China holiday visitors who stayed 1 to 4 days visited this region. However, 6% of China holiday visitors who stayed 5+ days visited this region. So not a primary destination at all for Chinese currently. I've used the same ratio of holiday arrivals to total arrivals to come up with a forecast holiday arrival of 420,000 in 2021. And I've got 3 scenarios here. One where holidays of 5+ days remain at 50% of holiday arrivals, and scenarios where this increases to 55% and 60% of holiday arrivals. So nothing too ambitious. You can see under scenario 1, where the percentage who stay 5+ days doesn't change at all, this region will have an additional 9,000 arrivals in 2021 compared to now, in line with the forecasts we saw earlier. However, under the second scenario, there will be an additional 10,680 arrivals, and with the third scenario, there will be an additional 12,360 arrivals. Under each of the scenarios, many smaller regions are going to see very substantial growth out of China, and the growth will be much greater than the average under the second and third scenarios if we continue to see the shift towards FIT and longer stays. Now, this is a fairly simplistic model, and you could add many other considerations to it, but I think it serves as an illustration of the near future in terms of the additional visitors from China you could be seeing in your region. If you're based in a region where the number of Chinese visitors is relatively low, it's worth looking into the near future, thinking about the strong growth out of this market, and evaluate if you're ready to serve and satisfy this growing market to a higher level. On to slide 13. Our own data shows a high level of satisfaction among all international arrivals, including Chinese. But to give you a wider context, New Zealand was number one when it comes to satisfaction of all destinations among Chinese tourists. New Zealand ranked first against 23 other popular outbound markets in a recent survey by the China Tourism Academy. So in a global context, we're doing well. But if we want to continue to drive satisfaction, increase positive word of mouth, and grow our share, volume and value-wise, we need to continue to learn about the FIT visitor from China and deliver an experience that exceeds their expectations. New Zealand is very popular right now with Chinese, but we're not alone in our efforts to grow arrivals and value. We need to continue to ensure Chinese visitors have an amazing experience in New Zealand to the point where they will recommend New Zealand as a destination to friends and family. Word of mouth is an extremely important factor in destination consideration. So satisfaction needs to lead on to recommendation, not just end in satisfaction that doesn't inspire recommendation to friends and family. On to slide 14 now. Despite high satisfaction levels with the New Zealand experience, Chinese holiday visitors score lower on likelihood to recommend compared to visitors from other key markets. So this is one area where there's plenty of room for improvement. The page here summarises Net Promoter Scores for selected key markets. This is the measure calculated by those who are highly likely to recommend New Zealand as a destination, less for those who are unlikely to do so. The score of 69 from China is one of the lowest from our key markets. And considering China is our second largest market, it would be great if we could do more to drive positive recommendation from Chinese holiday visitors, especially as word of mouth is so important for this market. So we do perform well on satisfaction. The lower likelihood to recommend is a reminder that we can do more to generate positive word of mouth and recommendation. Lucy will now talk more detail about the China FIT visitor and provide some insights that help you satisfy Chinese visitors to a point where they will recommend New Zealand and the places they've visited and the activities they did while here. Thank you.
We're just going to change seats, so couple. Hi everyone, thanks Bryce. I'm going to build on what Bryce has, I just need to click through to the next slide. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Right. I'm going to build on what Bryce has taken us through by sharing what it is that Chinese FIT are looking for and why they're looking for it when they're thinking about a holiday in New Zealand. I'm going to start with a bit of background just so that everyone has the same level of knowledge. At Tourism New Zealand, we're very selective in terms of determining the target audience we focus our marketing effort to. This being a global target market we refer to as active considerers of New Zealand. We do this because we want to shift the pool of current considerers into actual visitors. So we target those people who are already actively considering coming to New Zealand on holiday. We find and identify these people through online surveys that screen out people, as this slide shows, by asking a sample of a country's population a series of questions. So in order to be an active considerer of New Zealand, you have to follow or meet the following criteria. First of all, be aware of New Zealand, then think of New Zealand as a highly appealing destination, be seriously considering New Zealand, see New Zealand as a preferred destination, and you must be willing to spend a certain percentage of money per person on a trip to New Zealand. Some of the research that we have used for this presentation was done with active considerers in China, so I thought it was important that you were aware of kind of the background for what makes an active considerer in our target. On to the next slide. This chart shows us that within the China market, there are a high proportion of visitors who intend on travelling to New Zealand as a group holiday, which is shown in the lighter bars at the top of this chart. and some who want to travel as FIT as the bottom data bars. What we're showing here are the percentages or proportions, not actual numbers of people. But from this, we get a clear view that the proportion of Chinese people who are intending on coming to New Zealand on holiday as free and independent travellers are significantly younger, with 33% being aged 18 to 34 years old. The older Chinese people are more likely to travel as a group. The implications are not only that younger people are coming as FIT, but that this is likely to be the norm in the future, as more and more people see travelling in the FIT style as the norm. This means more money coming into our industry and staying in our economy. Now, we also know from what Bryce took us through is that there are more and more Chinese visitors coming to New Zealand, so it's a double whammy. More Chinese in general and more Chinese who want an FIT holiday, spending more, staying longer. This is all good news for us. As I mentioned earlier, at Tourism New Zealand, we target active considerers. And specifically within active considerers for China, we also target FIT travellers that are aged between the age of 30 and 49. We call these people independent professionals. And sort of a picture there to show where they sit within that age group. On the next slide, I'd just like to focus your attention to the bottom of this slide in the first instance. Here's a mini profile of the priority segment we call independent professionals. They're aged 18 to 49. They travel as a couple, taking a break from their busy lives. They tend to stay in motels and hotels and are more likely to get around in rental cars. The reason that they're travelling is for adventure, exploration, relaxation, and a little bit of luxury. Now, looking at the graph above this, what this tells us is that all Chinese active considerers, shown in the black line, have a very high brand preference for New Zealand. It sits at 82% at the moment. And for our priority segment, the blue line, it's even higher. It's a ridiculously high rate of 90%, which is fantastic. And just to give you context, most of our other top 6 markets sit between 60 and 70% preference scores. What this tells us is that New Zealand is still running hot insofar that it is a destination, and it indicates strong visitor numbers in the future as we have very, very strong preference or brand health scores in this market. These figures are in line with recent qualitative research supporting the view that FIT Chinese travellers are wanting to experience new destinations, and New Zealand is highly desirable. Now let's have a look at why this is. Chinese free and independent travellers have a clear understanding of what New Zealand offers as a destination. They see New Zealand as being pure and clean. It's all about the nature with various amazing landscapes to see. It's a peaceful place, a good place to get away from everything. And we've got very pleasant weather, being the opposite season to what they have in China. And I love this quote from one of our potential future visitors who said that New Zealand is the last clean place in the world, and long may it stay that way. This next slide basically talks to why travel is fundamentally important. It provides a new perspective on the world, and it's also very much about taking them away from their current environment and into a world that's very different from their own. In terms of place, they're getting away from polluted air, smoggy skies, polluted food, in an urban environment of intense living, to a place where it's unspoilt, pristine, full of nature, which is clean, calm, and safe. From a people perspective, they want to get away from the crowds, from a competitive environment where you have to constantly fight for your space, and there's a lack of trust between people, to going to a place where there are few people, to where the people are open, welcoming, and trusted. And from an experience perspective, getting away from an environment which is pressured, highly stressful, and mundane, to one where the experience is relaxed, easygoing, calm, safe, stimulating, and reviving. Our offer of 100% pure New Zealand absolutely hits the mark for Chinese FIT. They are wanting to soak up the beauty of New Zealand at all levels and discover our secret, and the way we live. Chinese FITs are also very experienced travellers. They have high expectations and they seek comfort and freedom. These all have major implications in the way in which we deliver our products and services to our Chinese guests. International travel is nothing new to them. They fly long haul on holidays generally once a year, and they do a couple of short haul flights per year as well, often to other Asian destinations. They've been to Europe, the UK and the USA, and they're now looking for new and exciting places to go, which is why New Zealand is highly appealing. Given these people are well-travelled and are likely to be used to high levels of service at relatively low cost, given that they're frequent flyers to Asia, they want to feel that they're getting value. This may be perceived value, so getting a discount or a deal may be seen as really attractive. Having a small value-added service or gift may be all it takes to make the difference and help set you apart. They also have high expectations. Given that they are experienced travellers, they're not satisfied with the ordinary and are actually seeking fresh experiences, which again is why New Zealand is of high interest to them. They want new, unique experiences and surprises. They also seek the need for comfort as well as freedom. They want to feel comfortable and at ease. Make them feel welcomed and give them some creature comforts that they're used to having at home. They will pay for better products and services. They're on holiday after all. They want to relax and enjoy it. Given that they're wanting to get away from their usual day-to-day lives, they do not want a rushed, jammed-packed holiday. They want to be able to explore and take their time. For this reason, FITs are more inclined to want to self-drive, and on average, they plan in the future to spend about 2 weeks or just under on holidays here in New Zealand. Now, in the next few slides, we're going to provide some of the common themes that came through in the latest qualitative research and the implications of what this means to us as an industry. Some of what I'm going to be talking about may be blindingly obvious to many of you. We are not in any way trying to teach you how to suck eggs, rather we're trying to provide you with practical examples of how this information could be applied, in the hope that it may spark some ideas of how these insights can be used in a practical sense in your businesses. As we go through the next slides, if you can think of questions that are relevant, or if you as a business have a really good example that could be shared of how you've seen this, please do pop a question or a comment online and Paul can pick these up later. It would be great if we can share some of these thoughts at the end of this webinar. What our potential visitors have told us that they want is to take their time and to be able to experience a particular region or area well. They don't want to rush, and they may well return to further explore in the future if they enjoy their experience and see that there is much more to see and do than they had time for on their first trip. They want to allow time to sit and watch the world around them and get a sense of what it is to live like locals. Therefore, the implication for RTOs in particular is to have available a cohesive offer, making a region a destination to spend time in by showing day trips and clearly showing, for example, the top 10 highlights or the must-dos that are particularly iconic to that region or are significantly differentiated experiences which are unique to that particular area. This makes it easy for visitors to navigate with and use as a basis to plan from. Encouraging itineraries that allow time to enjoy the sights, smells, interactions with people, wildlife and culture are a really good way to do this. And increasingly our Chinese visitors want an immersive experience, which is perhaps not what we're used to seeing from this particular market. They do not want everything planned. So make finding and booking activities easy to do at hotels or online or even on the phone is a good thing to do. Connecting with them after the experience, building the relationship. They may come back after all. This can easily be done by getting their email address and sending them an online postcard thanking them for their visit. This could be pre-prepared and then simply personalised with a greeting. So to sum up this theme, here is a quote at the bottom there from a Chinese person from the research who said, "If I'm there, I feel real, and I can bring it back to China with me. This could be a feeling, a photograph, a souvenir, a smell, a food experience. It's a tangible reminder of a different world to the one they live in, a piece of our paradise that they can take home. My personal experience of this is when I go to Fiji, I always bring home the beautiful coconut soap that they have there. Why? Because when I use the soap back in Auckland, I'm reminded of that holiday. And it's a small way to reinforce that feeling. So it's especially important if this is a unique New Zealand kind of product. It seems like a small and simple thing, but it builds a really strong emotional connection with people, which is a fantastic thing to do for the future. This next theme is in the context of how Chinese FIT want to have an immersive experience. Immersive experiences don't mean the same thing to all nationalities. The Germans and the Chinese, generally speaking, will have a different view of what immersion means. Our Chinese visitors are seeking simple, no-stress ways to experience New Zealand. They want to be there and see it, but not necessarily do it. But at the same time, want to feel or be seen to having been done it, if that makes sense. Why? Well, because for many Chinese, experiences are all about social currency rather than the satisfaction of personal achievement. Chinese travellers are prolific social media users. They share everything they do and every moment online. They also love the idea of having something unique happen to them, which makes them feel special and provides a sense of serendipity, making an experience memorable and, again, worth sharing. So the implications here are to make things simple and easy. Take care of the details for them, pick them up from the hotel, have lunch available, make it so that they have to do minimal effort to enjoy the experience. They are happy to pay for this. In terms of immersive experiences, they want to be there, not necessarily to do it. By way of example only, Germans and Kiwis will find a way, will want to climb a mountain because it's there. Most Chinese will want to go to the mountain and see it and admire it, but not necessarily conquer it. Remember, it's as much about the social currency as anything. So think about how you can use this to get free advertising to others via social media. How can you create that memorable social opportunity with your brand and your location included in shot? How can you give them memorable surprises that make them feel special and that they've just had an experience that others would not have had? This is what builds stories worth sharing. And again, I think this visitor quote to sum up this theme of immersive experiences really captures the idea. I want to sit in a boat and watch the crayfish being caught, not catch them myself, which brings us nicely on to the theme of food. Food seems to be a common topic that many in our industry want to know about, so we've dedicated 3 whole slides to food. Food is very important culturally for the Chinese. They see food preparation quite differently to us. They do not waste anything and find intricate ways to prepare and deal with foods we, as Kiwis, would often turn our noses up at. We Kiwis like and value the simplicity and freshness of food, whereas for Chinese, preparing very good quality ingredients without adding great flavours seems like a waste. As an industry, we are also faced with the challenges that the regional differences of food in China are huge. Our Chinese guests have their own preferred palates depending on whereabouts in China they come from. In contrast to this, as a destination, New Zealand is not seen to have a distinctive cuisine. Seafood at source is the closest we have to an ownable and unique offer, particularly foods like tuna, pawa, and crayfish. Seafood on ice is not fresh. The idea of fresh, or Xinjiang, is something we can offer that is uniquely and highly desirable. Fresh for Chinese is to see it in its natural state, i.e. still alive, still on the tree, or still in the ground. Then harvest it and then eat it. So what does this mean for us? It means that the backstory for food is important. It provides a multi-sensory experience. So if you're able to, and it makes sense to, build the story into food and eating experiences and emphasise the options that are available at source, especially if they have been able to watch the fish being caught or pick the fruit or harvest the grapes themselves. Allow them to participate in cooking their harvested food or share the moment at a barbecue, but do have Chinese food available so that they do have choice. Restaurants that allow fish that was caught on a boat trip to be prepared, cooked and enjoyed may offer a unique and valued experience. Offer it if you can and have a partnership with, say, a fishing charter operator so that you have a symbiotic relationship. Finally, it's so important to offer foods that cater to their needs, as this makes them feel comfortable, welcomed and looked after. This visitor quote, to summarise this theme, was a real surprise to me. This person said, "What a waste to just pan-fry fish with a bit of lemon squeezed. It's such a waste and not very enjoyable." I found that quite surprising, given that A, it's one of my favourite meals, but secondly, it's something that we love doing as New Zealanders, is that beautiful, fresh simplicity. That is not the same for the Chinese. This next slide is really just here to try and sort of summarise what we've been talking about so far. The idea of the story of the food at source, getting the photo shot of the food being caught for the purpose of social sharing, and then immediately eating at source. I'd also just like to make the point here that I love this shot in the middle of a fully cooked crayfish being caught at a sunny sandy beach. Now we know that this is not real, but it's the type of photo our Chinese guests want. So how can we deliver this? I'll also add that for many Chinese, Ninsbin may not be what they had in mind, but I'm using it here as a simple demonstration of the point of proximity to the source of the food, and therefore the freshness and the total experience. I think that just those three shots really capture the idea of the story behind the food, catching it fresh, and then consuming it. One more slide on food. While the Chinese visitors want to try our food, they do want access to their own food. So if you can't offer it, do know where to recommend it or where to recommend your guests to. And know what it is that they'd rather have. For example, sushi over sandwiches. Or even better, hot noodles or rice for lunch. But definitely not sandwiches. They also seek a hot breakfast, preferably with congee. It's really important, and they will seek it out. Put yourself in their shoes. Imagine going on holiday to China and having only congee available. That would be, for me, far from ideal. I may well try it once, but soon after that I'll be trying to hunt out my Bogle's toast and I'll pay a small fortune for it. The importance of snacks. Chinese have an expectation that snacks will be available everywhere, both local and Asian versions. Snacks are also a very easy way for them to try our food and for them to take home as gifts. Make snacks available everywhere. And for those who may not know, Chinese never drink cold water, only ever serve them warm. Simple, I know, but it demonstrates knowledge and understanding of who they are and what they want, and it lifts their overall levels of satisfaction for their visit. It's not hard, but it's incredibly meaningful. So now on to something entirely different, how Chinese people get information and the importance of social media. This slide is an overview of how Chinese get information on not only the destination they choose to travel to, but how they plan their trip, both in terms of where to go, what to see, and what to do. The very, very simple message of this slide is that social forums and word of mouth are everything. If you're going to focus on one thing for your promotional activity for this market, then use travel forums, blogs, and social media. For the larger accommodation providers, forums and blogs are probably more useful to ensure a presence. Sites like Mafangwu, Tunak, Travel2Go, Booking.com, etc. Don't forget that Facebook and YouTube are blocked in China. So for operators, I think that the social forums like Mafangwu, WeChat and Weibo are critical, as these are used extensively by Chinese travellers to share their experiences. This is a very, very cost-effective way to get your product and brand out to so many Chinese FIT. If you're an operator and you don't have a regular presence on these social forums, then I would certainly be encouraging you to do so fairly quickly. If you can't do this by yourself and you want to attract Chinese visitors to your business, then we suggest hiring a social expert, a Chinese social expert, who can build your profile. I'll share a couple of examples of how this can work for you to finish off this webinar. As previously mentioned, Chinese people are avid social networkers. Chinese FIT are really avid social networkers, and Chinese FIT, while on holiday, are extreme social networkers. So use this to your advantage. We are not able to click on the link that I've got on this next slide, but I would encourage you to do so when you get the copy of this presentation and have a look at what's in there. This is a typical Chinese FIT traveller who has shared their experiences online once they've got home. This is not unusual, and you'll see there are pages and pages and pages of commentary and photographs. And in this, you'll be able to see that there are some operators that have done a fantastic job of getting their brand in shots. The example that I'm thinking on, and again you'll see it if you go to the site, is Long Tea. Now, I don't think there is one photograph on this person's blog that hasn't got their brand in it. There are lots of photographs of Waitomo and Hamilton Gardens, but you only know that it's those places because this person has shown their itinerary and has talked about where they are. I'm using this as an example to show you how you can potentially try and get as much branding as you can so that when these photographs are shared, people can see exactly where they went and what the different destinations and experiences look like. Finally, to wrap up my section, I would like to share with you a case study that I thought it would be a good idea to put up, which is Skydive Wanaka. And thank you very much to the team, to Lisa Chambers and the team at Skydive Wanaka for sharing this information. First of all, a little bit of background for the business of Skydive Wanaka, which in 2008 was owned by the Hall family. They recognised the potential opportunity in Chinese outbound travellers and formed a relationship with two people, Hunter and Winnie. Hunter is a Kiwi guy and Winnie is Chinese. And through Winnie, they started promoting Skydive Wanaka using Weibo. They posted one picture per day and one offer per month. This started to build a social presence in China. In August 2013, the business was bought by the Ferguson family, who have not only continued to focus on Chinese visitors, but they have in fact increased their investment to attract even more Chinese visitors to their business, building on the initial success of the Halls. This has resulted in a really good result in business profitability for them and expansion, and they have very high brand awareness in China. So much so that Chinese people coming to New Zealand insist with their travel agents or when they're booking that if they're going to do a skydive, it should be with Skydive Wanaka. They are on the list of must-dos for this region. So how did Skydive Wanaka achieve such fantastic growth? Well, they identified the opportunity of growth with Chinese arrivals and they invested in trade and relationships. They further invested in having Chinese advice and resource. They used a lady called Kate Geng. Now, Kate used to work in New Zealand in our tourism industry here, and she's since set up a business in China. This is in no way a push for Kate. It just so happens that this is what she does. Kate manages the social media for Skydive Wanaka, both on Weibo and WeChat. Skydive Wanaka have also developed a Chinese web page on their website. It's 100% in Mandarin. Now Skydive Wanaka are investing further by employing a Chinese staff member, and their Chinese visitors now make up around about 40% of their revenue, and it's at a price premium. I asked Lisa what she would share during this webinar, and unfortunately she's actually in a meeting in Auckland today, but I said to her, what would be your advice to others? And here are her 4 tips. Have a plan and stick to it. Be focused. If you're going to attract Chinese visitors to your business, you need to invest, start small, and be consistent. It will pay off. Network and form relationships with bigger operators that are doing the job well. learn from them, learn from their mistakes, and almost use them as mentors if you can find one who is prepared to help you and share. Get ideas on how to do things and what not to do. And get help on connecting into the market. The only watcher that Lisa sort of gave in terms of advice, because I said, is it as easy as getting a Chinese student to help get you onto social media? She had a small watch out on that one, is just to be a little bit cautious because there are a few tricks. Her example of this was that in Mandarin there is no immediate translation for the word skydive. So in terms of trying to interpret that, it was really important that the person that you work with to do that translation understand what it means in English and then is able to translate that and interpret it in a way that Chinese people will understand. So that she just wanted to leave that sort of little watch out as it's not quite as simple sometimes as it seems. So make sure that you do get, good quality help to try and get your presence in social media if that's what you want to do. That pretty much wraps us up. We've added some useful links there and could potentially add more to that, but we just thought we'd add a couple of links of some sites where you can go and find some information and stay abreast of what's happening in China for your business. So that wraps it up for Bryce and I. Thank you very much for your time to join us. I know there's been a lot of information shared. We hope you find it useful. As mentioned, this presentation will be posted up on our corporate website for your reference, and hopefully we've got some time for questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Lucy, and thank you, Bryce. That's an excellent presentation. Lots of practical information in there as well for the operators listening. So as Lucy mentioned, we do have time for some questions. There's already a few in the queue, which I'll start to run through shortly, but just a reminder, if you do want to ask a question, just go to the top of the screen. You'll see a Q&A icon. Just click on that and type in your question, and I'll read that out, and there'll be a bit of a fight between Lucy and Bryce to see who will answer it. A couple already have made some comments about the great level of detail here and about how they can get hold of copies of this, so hang on until the end of the presentation, and in my wrap-up I'll give you some specifics of how you can access this presentation at the end. But let's get into some of the actual questions here, and the first one is mentioning, do you think group travellers still will be the majority for a while to come?
I can talk to that. At the moment, they are still the majority. The growth out of independent holidays is occurring faster. There are a couple of things at play. Obviously, independent travel is becoming more popular and more desired, so it will catch up to group. But we know that group operators are now specifically targeting the Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities as they come on board the outbound travel market and as they grow slightly wealthier. So we can't often think of Shanghai, Beijing for our Tier 1 market, but there's a big Tier 2, Tier 3 market out there. So it'll be interesting just to see what the growth out of those parts of China contributes. Because what will happen probably is you'll see the Tier 1 markets lead the way with independent, and then Tier 1 and Tier 2 and 3 sit in behind. We do know that Tier 1 have a longer length of stay than Tier 2 and 3. So over time, as people get more experience with travel, they'll probably graduate from group to independent. So hard to know an exact time frame. But yeah, we'll continue to monitor length of stay and the visa data that comes out of China. And
can I just jump in on that and build on that? Perhaps something also to think about is the actual numbers of arrivals may stay sort of almost neck and neck, but value is likely to change because Chinese FITs stay longer, travel more destinations, spend more in terms of activities. The value of FIT may well be greater over time.
Thanks, folks. Another question here is, why aren't we targeting the 18 to 25-year-old group as a targeted segment, because they make up around 24% of the arrivals?
Again, it's just about that prioritising in terms of a large group of people. I mean, you could argue that we're targeting everybody, so we have that as our current priority segment, and it works across different markets as well. So we could always target everybody, but the approach that we take is getting those higher value, and we have got fixed resources, so we can't basically get everybody. Yes, it's totally recognised that there are a high proportion of those younger people arriving. That's where we've decided. We are also we're always looking to kind of go, is that right? So we're not saying never. It's just what we currently do and how we define independent professionals at the moment.
Yeah, each year we will review our strategies in our target markets, reevaluate what we've learned over the past year, what trends are occurring, and reevaluate to make sure that we are investing our efforts into the right target markets.
Great. There's a couple of questions here about the methodology used in the actual research, and I see on a lot of the slides it sort of relates to both what's called Project Kiwi and the Auckland International Airport and MB research. Could you give us just a quick summary of the workings behind the research that you're referencing here?
Absolutely. Good question. So there are two pieces of, those were both qualitative pieces of research done. The Project Kiwi piece of research was a joint venture piece of research done between Air New Zealand and Tourism New Zealand, done in 3 cities in China at the end of last year. So the methodology there was qualitative. The work done with Auckland International Airport and the Ministry of Business and Innovation was work done in September of last year. So that was joint funded by AIO and MB, and that was also qualitative, and that was done in market as well. So both bits of qualitative research were done in China. And they were done, the Project Kiwi one was done using active considerers. So we, in New Zealand and Tourism New Zealand, have both looking at a sort of very similar target audience. I couldn't tell you without going into the presentation to find out with the work done with MB and Auckland International Airport about how they screened their respondents. I'll have to check that one and follow up.
Cool. Thank you for that. The good thing is it's very, very recent research, so which is great to have, isn't it?
Yeah.
One question here. This person is wondering how this research reached the conclusion that FITs don't want everything planned.
Again, that's simply asking kind of how they do itineraries, and it's a change, I guess. It's qualitative research is a discussion, and it's what we feed back directly from consumers. So qualitative is a conversation with people on what their views are. It's an opinion from potential visitors from China. It's not, if you like, a hard fact in the way quantitative is, but it's more about what they're thinking. So they want to have the time to explore and be spontaneous and follow their noses and see what's going on. So that's a general theme that comes through. So on qualitative, we're also looking, we don't just take one respondent's view, it's also the general trends that many of the respondents actually voice that view of.
Great. A question here on those earlier slides on satisfaction levels. I think the first slide that you put up showed that we were at the top of the list for satisfaction levels. The question is, on the next slide, why is that not translating to the recommendation rates, which of course from China were lower compared to many of our other markets?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. We have looked at that. That vital satisfaction, of course, was done in China, looking at multiple destinations and where overseas travellers are most satisfied. We have our own satisfaction measures China scores very well on those, but it just doesn't translate across to the same level of recommendation. We have run the data each and every other way, and we can't find a direct driver of that. It might just be that for some Chinese travellers, we're doing enough right to provide them with a satisfactory holiday in which what they are after. We're not doing quite enough for them to actively advocate New Zealand as a destination. So we do know while China has high satisfaction scores, the food and beverage satisfaction score is slightly lower and could be improved. Still positive, but it is slightly lower. So I think maybe with some picking up some of the tips on what Lucy talked about with food, that might help round out an overall quality experience in New Zealand and turn these visitors into advocates.
Great question here on our target group of 30 to 49. Is it all of those people who prefer to see rather than do, or do you think the younger section of that group might have a different preference?
Good question, hard to answer. There's no absolute. I mean, when you're looking at a particular portion of any population, it's quite general. So, I mean, I can't answer that absolutely to say that's more or less the way it goes. I mean, my personal view based on what I know at this point and my opinion would be, it would seem it's more likely to be the younger end of that. And the reason that I say that is going back to what Bryce presented is the younger generation of Chinese are more, dare I say it, westernised. They're much more worldly and have got a more open view than the older Chinese people. They're growing up in a different world, and therefore they very much want to know about the world more so than older people perhaps. That would be how I would interpret that, and would suggest that the slightly younger people, which kind of piggybacks into that question around who are we targeting. In terms of targeting a particular demographic group of people, everyone will go through the age, well, hopefully, of being, 35. So whether we target 25-year-olds or 35-year-olds, if we target 35-year-olds who've got money to spend and are on holiday and wanting to enjoy New Zealand, rather than slightly younger people who may not have as much disposable income. So it's a catch-22. So my short answer is it's likely that the younger people will be more inquisitive and be more adventurous. That's my kind of short view on that one.
Excellent, thank you. I know we've reached our advertised closing time, folks, but we've got quite a number of questions here, probably the most questions I think we've had for a webinar. So if everybody's happy to keep continuing, up in Auckland there, are you folks okay to take another couple more questions?
Yes, that's fine.
Fabulous. Well, let's keep on rolling. And just for anybody that does have to leave us, just go to tourismnewzealand.com and you'll be able to track down copies of this webinar, but I'll come back with some more details for those of you that are hanging on. And I think we've still got quite a large number of people still listening in. In fact, just noticed on our public chat, we've just put the URL there for those that have to leave now and want to get a copy of this later on. So next question.
Sorry, just on the public chat as well, that someone's confirmed by Louise that on the work that was done, the qualitative research that was done with Auckland Airport, that they did actually screen for active consideration FIT travellers, just to confirm that.
Fabulous. Thanks very much, Lucy. A question here, it's actually probably three parts to this, but they start off saying, do you think Chinese like meeting local people? I think that's a pretty short answer, isn't it?
Yeah, that's actually quite an interesting one. To be honest, I did some work on this recently, and compared to other markets, less so. And the reason that I think that is less so than other markets, like, for example, the Germans, is probably a language barrier. So while they want to be welcomed and embraced, they are probably feel a little bit awkward because they may not speak English, and often Chinese FITs do travel with family members or with a friend who does speak English. So the general view relative to other markets is less likely, but if they are confident and have an English speaker with them, then they are more likely to want to interact with locals. So sorry, it's not that easy one to answer for.
That's good. Second part of the question is, has the TV show Daddy, Where Are You Going, that of course Tourism New Zealand sponsored and brought that reality show out to New Zealand, has that had any influence? Are we able to measure it, in other words?
Absolutely. Anecdotally, we can say it absolutely has had a massive influence on lifting our profile and showing off New Zealand and helping our popularity. We haven't got absolute line of sight to go, yes, because of that, therefore we can see that, other than when that program was on air, we saw preference rocket. And that was sort of one of the major differences that happened. So you correlate those two things together and go, yeah, absolutely, Daddy, Where Are You Going had a significant shift in how we're seen and just raising awareness and people's desire to come to New Zealand.
Great. And the third part, the same person asking the same question around, is it important for New Zealand to develop commissionable products around homestays and bed and breakfasts? And I guess relating to their earlier question about meeting local people, if you're thinking about B&Bs and homestays having that really close connection with the host, and your answer to that saying that, perhaps it is a little bit more challenging, this could be a sector that, may need to do a little bit more work in that area.
Yeah, and I would say the answer that it will be increasing. And as you say, Paul, it's likely to be because for many just being uncertain about levels of comfort, but I would think that homestays would be a product that would be definitely increasing for Chinese FITs for sure. The trick is to how do you make Chinese visitors, know that they're going to be really comfortable and that they will be looked after. But I'd say that they love it, especially, particularly in rural kind of farms where they can get to see, how food is produced, etc. Because that's a million miles away from what they have in China.
A well-executed homestay for the Chinese market, make sure it's leveraged on their social media.
Great. A couple of questions in this statement. Would using the Chinese community in Auckland, and obviously that's a pretty large community, be a good way to get a larger social media profile in the market? And could we host for meals or discounted tours to these groups within New Zealand pre-season to get both feedback on new product as well as build a brand with peer-reviewed social media presence in China?
I think it's a really interesting suggestion. I mean, it's not one that I can answer to say, well, Bryce and I can't really answer that. They're going to go, yeah, we can or can't. I mean, I think it's a really interesting idea. I mean, just to give a little bit of context, we actually did exactly that for driver safety. So we've just done some research with the Chinese community, asking them about what their experiences were when they first landed in New Zealand and driving. So we did exactly using the Auckland Chinese community to get some learnings on that one. So I think it's a fantastic suggestion. Whether or not we could or should do that is not really for me to answer, but I can certainly send that in the right direction within Tourism New Zealand.
Okay, still a few more questions here. We've got still almost 80 people hanging on the line, so we'll keep going if that's okay.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
A question around, has there been any research around the growth in Chinese FITs who can speak English?
No. We've got nothing specifically on that. Again, the only thing that we could probably say to that point is that, again, as the middle classes and the upper middle classes in China continue to develop, then the number of people speaking English will continue to grow. But no specific research.
Okay, and one here that may be hard for you guys to answer, but how much of the future FIT attractions and accommodation will be supplied by Chinese investors and those already now living in New Zealand?
that's hard to say about where potential Chinese investors want to put their money. With a growing, migration from China, there will be expat Chinese who might see an opportunity to enter the industry, but I couldn't comment on the levels of capital being put into the market by that community. I wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm. Question around how we can best break down the language barrier.
Wow.
Multiple answers for that one, I guess.
Yeah. I guess, we could all do more to, some basic Mandarin, whether it's, a few conversational phrases, that's always appreciated, if anything.
Can I, another way that I've learned over the years in terms of just doing research in different countries, if I can pass that insight on perhaps, use pictures. Pictures cut through language barriers, cut through cultures. So if you have got some, if you've got common questions, for example, that Chinese people ask in your businesses, or maps and pointing, again, if you can try and find a way about not using words, then that can often be a different way of attacking the same problem. And honestly, pictures tell, that's why image testing and using images is so powerful.
Great. Folks, we are probably going to have to wind this up. We've still got a few more questions in here, and what I'm going to do for those who've added those questions to the queue is to send those through to Lucy and Bryce. And we've got your names associated with those, and we'll come back to you specifically, because I think we could certainly go on quite a long time here, and I know some people are starting to drop off the list now because they've obviously allocated this time and sadly need to go back to work. So what I'm going to do is thank you, Lucy and Bryce, for putting together obviously a very informative presentation. You've got a lot of questioning here, which shows how interested many of our listeners, viewers are in this particular market. So thank you very much for your time. Any last comments or statements you'd like to make before we leave you?
Thank you everyone who joined. I'd just like to ask one little thing for those who are still online. I've just got a quick question to know whether or not Bryce and I are keen to do these webinars at least on a quarterly basis. So if you could let us know if these webinars are useful to you, and secondly, if you've got particular topics that you'd like us to cover, then please drop those into that and get those through to us as well via this forum. That would be really helpful. Anything else from you, Bryce?
No, nothing to add. Just thank you again for taking the time out of your day to listen. We hope it's been useful. It's certainly a very interesting and exciting market. And I just encourage you to just have a look at those links that we put on the final page of the presentation. Some useful information in there, and the China Skinny newsletter, the favourite of mine, just a lot of interesting news on Chinese consumer in general, but also they have a travel section which always yields some interesting insights.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you once again, Lucy and Bryce. And just wrapping up on behalf of the team here, again, thank you everybody for joining us. We had a good number of people joining us today, lots of questions, which is always great to hear from you all. As I mentioned at the beginning, we will be putting this presentation up on the Tourism New Zealand website. We'll hopefully get that up tomorrow as far as the actual slides are concerned. We'll also be getting up a full recording so you can hear the commentary around the slides as well. That will just take a little bit longer because we'll edit out the boring bits, me doing the introduction, for example, and the end thing. So once we've done that editing, we'll have that on there, but it probably won't be until early next week. So we hope you've enjoyed the session. As Lucy mentioned, feel free to put any comments in the Q&A box now to assist them when the Insights team do a future webinar on another market. So that'll be very useful to them. but the next webinar in the ongoing series of Tourism New Zealand webinars will be on the 11th of June at 2:30 p.m. New Zealand time, and that will be a recap of the Tourism New Zealand Strategic Updates Roadshow, which of course is visiting a major city near you next week. That'll be occurring in Auckland, Rotorua, Wellington, Christchurch and Queenstown. That'll be live, of course, so hopefully you put in an invitation to go along to one of those. But if you haven't, then of course you can join the webinar, which will cover the same slides on Thursday, the 11th of June. And Deborah Gray, the GM of Corporate Affairs, and myself will be presenting that webinar. So just one final reminder, you can see on the screen there, if you haven't already subscribed to Tourism News, our monthly e-newsletter, that's how you can do it. And there's an email address. If you have any other question or you forgot anything that I've said, just send that through to that email address and we'll get back to you. And just to assure those people who did put in a question, apologies we didn't get time. It's just been a fantastic response today, but we will pass those questions on to Lucy and Bryce, and we'll get back to you because we know your email address and personally respond. So thank you once again on behalf of the team here at Tourism New Zealand. We've loved bringing you this webinar. Look forward to hearing from you or talking to you again soon. Ka kite anō.